Many of us would like to retire early, but we're not quite sure how to be able to do that. And I've been a fee-only financial advisor for over 20 years. I've helped hundreds of families transition into retirement. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you some of the secrets that I've shared with them to help them retire early. So let's go for a walk and get started. I'm going to break today's video down into two sections. The first section is going to talk about the financial aspects of it. That's super important, obviously. And the second part's going to talk about the psychological aspects of retiring early. And I think that's even more important. The money part is something that you can calculate. The psychological part of it is what keeps, frankly, most people from retiring early. So be sure to stay to the end. Okay, the financial side of things. You know, high level, it really comes down to where you are at now and where do you need to get in order to be able to retire from a financial standpoint. So where you're at now, that's easy to determine, right? How much money do you have in the stock market? What's the value of that? What are your assets worth? Do you have any debts? Things like that. A harder question to answer is how much money do you need to retire? And this is not financial advice. I don't know your situation, but I can walk you through what the important factors are so that you can think about this for yourself. And more importantly, you can think about hiring somebody to help you make sure that your math is right. Because when it comes time to retiring, you don't want to think that you have enough money to retire. You want to know that you have enough money to retire, right? So the first step when it comes to, you know, how much money you're going to need to retire is it really isn't on the balance sheet side of it. It's not on your savings accounts, on your stock balances. It really comes down to yourself and what your expenses are and what does it take for you to live a happy retirement. And I think the first thing is, as you look at expenses, you want to make sure that you're not sacrificing unnecessarily, right? If there's things that you would like to do that would make you happy, and for most of us, that's not driving a BMW instead of a Honda, right? We're old enough that we know that's not what's going to make us happy. But for most of us, you know, that's experiences with our friends and family and being able to do experiences, being able to follow our passions, be able to do things with people that we love, to be able to go places that we think are interesting. So I call those experiences. But think about what your expenses are going to be in retirement. And here's the process I encourage people to use. Look at what your needs are first, right? Your shelter, food. You're going to have a car probably if you're going to retire in the United States. The reality is most of us now need a smartphone. You know, we need a laptop, a computer, internet access. But do we need a new smartphone every year? Do we need the latest and greatest laptop? Do we need the fastest internet, or is there a subcategory of that would be fine? So look at your expenses, kind of piece that together. And here's the secret. Now I encourage you to live off of that lower expenses for at least a couple months. 6 months is better than 3 months is better than 1, and a year will give you a really, really good feel as to how that feels. Because what you don't want to do is say, oh, you know, I can sacrifice this, I can sacrifice that, it's not important to me. And then you find out later, actually it is important, right? So the first thing to do is look at the expenses and see what that adds up to. And then say, okay, how much money do I need a year? And let's say you're 50 years old, just as an example, and your Social Security is not going to kick in. The earliest that you can start taking Social Security is 62. Now, the average Social Security check in the United States is $1,800 a month. But that's an average. That's for people that took it at 62, and that's also for people that waited till 70. So what is the average for the people that took it at 62? It's closer to $1,300 a month. So you want to know that, because your expenses, you're not going to have income coming in until you can get Social Security, unless you have maybe rental properties or something like that. So you look at what your income coming in retirement is going to be. And for most people, maybe you have a rental property. Most of us don't. So for most of us, it's going to be maybe we have a pension. Again, most of us don't. So it's going to be Social Security. It's going to be our primary source of outside income. And the rest of it's going to have to come from our savings, from our 401ks, things like that. So you look at your expenses, and then you say, for every $10,000 of expenses that I have to fund from my retirement accounts, you're basically going to need $250,000. Now, again, this isn't financial advice. That really comes from the rule of 4%, and I inverted some numbers, but that's essentially, if you do the math, 10%, 4% of $250,000 is $10,000 a year. It's just easier for most of us to think of it this way. $10,000 for $10,000 of expenses is going to take $250,000 to support that. And then let's say Social Security kicks in, and that's going to be $20,000 a year for you. Well, at that point, you don't need those, in this case, $500,000, right? 4% of $500,000 is $20,000. You don't need that coming from your savings anymore. Now that comes from Social Security. So you look at all of that, and that's how you determine how much money financially you need to retire early. But it's also important, as I said earlier, to look at the psychological aspects of what does it take to be able to retire. And as I said, this tends to be the hardest part for most people, is giving up their identity and finding their new purpose, right? When we go to work, when we're working now, we're working 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and we've got to commute to work, etc. For most of us during the work week, it looks like we go to work, we come home. If we're lucky, we get 2 hours to do a hobby, relax, spend time with our young kids, whatever it is, prepare dinner, and then get ready for the next day and grind through it again, right? So we're so caught in that treadmill, in that cycle, that it's easy to lose what our identity is outside of work. So one of the things I want to encourage that I think is super helpful, there's a book called From Strength to Strength by an author by the name of Arthur Brooks, Brooks. And he walks people through, how do you find your next purpose? How do you find what you're going to be passionate about? How do you do that transition? And spoiler alert, for most of us, it means we're going from being a doer to being a coach, a mentor, a friend to others, and helping them achieve their goals. And for many people, we find purpose in that. I also want to encourage you, another great resource is this video here that's called It's Go Time. It's your last chance to retire early. And there's a lot of great information there. It's really part 2 of this video. I encourage you to watch it. I'll see you there. It's called It's Go Time, How to Retire Early. Bye-bye.